CBD not having a federal status or regulatory clarity, when you are trying to grow a business, you really can't avail of some of the just normal things that a business should have to avail of in order to grow. Something like equipment financing wouldn't come without a 25% interest price tag, which is too much for a company to take on. We've been through 7 banks throughout the business.
Can't get a loan?
I remember there was a Thursday, bank said, we're pulling out your money and you can pick up a cashier's check. And then we had payroll due on Tuesday the following week, because at that time you were still associated with cannabis, even though it was hemp. And it's unfair because while the government claims to want to have these industrial hemp businesses flourish, there's also this other dark side of it where you have to get very creative in order to get those things for your business.
This is Dr. Priyanka Sharma. Together with her husband, Pulak Sharma, she co-founded Kazmira, a Colorado-based company specializing in large-scale production of botanical extracts from industrial hemp. I asked Priyanka what her friends thought about her co-founding a CBD company right after completing her Ph.D. in chemical engineering.
Growing up in the Midwest, I vividly remember like in the 6th grade, you're attending the DARE program and they tell you that marijuana is a gateway drug. I went back for my 10-year high school reunion, expected everyone to be like, oh my God, you're working in what? I think my friends were the least surprised out of anybody that I would just pick up and move to Colorado and start working in the hemp business. They're like, we get it that you would do this because who else is gonna do this? So that was my experience.
On the other hand, Pulak got a very different reaction when he announced the decision to leave his successful corporate strategy job at 3M, one of the largest Fortune 500 companies in the United States.
When I told a lot of folks, they were very shocked. I think they did not have many good things to say, except just good luck, maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. It was definitely something out of left field a little bit because CBD, THC, hemp, marijuana, they're kind of inextricably linked a little bit. There's concern around, well, what does that mean for your future? What if this doesn't work out? And will it be difficult to get another job?
Yeah, if you talk to like a major CPG company, people in quality control, like they're afraid to work on projects including CBD. They're afraid to have it on their resume. They don't know what the next employer, what the next person is gonna think.
Do you remember when the idea of Kazmira first came to you? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. It all started in need for my mother. About a decade ago, Priyanka was coming here to Denver to do a PhD talk, and I tagged along with her. And interestingly enough, at the same time, my mother had really started talking about issues with sleep that she was going through. And she wanted to try something new. And I did some online research, learned about CBD. That led us to come here during her PhD chat. And we found a hemp farmer that we went to go see. Took some of their hemp, stuffed it in our bag, and started doing what we're good at. We're both chemical engineers, and started doing a lot of the purification chemistry that's needed to make a very high quality medical grade CBD.
We didn't realize at the time that there was this burgeoning industry that would start in United States, quite frankly, surrounding industrial hemp. And it obviously started in Colorado. What we found were people looking to find CBD products that could help them with various issues. One of them was sleep. So my parents have a technology development company in Chicago. So at that time, they were actually getting requests where people were trying to understand, can you extract CBD from industrial hemp using traditional technologies that you would use for other active ingredients? And that was when we realized there wasn't a technology company in this space. It was actually focused on quality products and safe manufacturing for these type of CBD products from industrial hemp, there wouldn't be a company that would hire us to work on this. There wasn't a company that was even wanting to pivot into this space, yet it was sort of a cultural phenomenon that was happening across the United States. It was like this conversation surrounding cannabis and hemp that was getting louder and louder, even at that time, which was 2016.
Yeah. So what happened next?
January 31st, we incorporated the business and I quit 3M. We moved here in February.
Yeah.
And we started with shoveling hemp into the process ourselves, running the unit operations ourselves, and then at night sweeping and cleaning the place up. The amount of grit that you have to have. Not only are we focused on making of the product, we have to do the selling part too. So Priyanka and I were working probably 16 hours a day. And every dollar we made would go directly to funding. Just reinvest it back in the business for more growth.
Yeah, whether it was equipment or whether it was hiring people or training people, it was all reinvested, every single dollar.
Right away.
Yeah.
Kazmira grew rapidly, but with growth came other challenges.
We make the raw material, the CBD, at a purified level that is then given to a distributor or a wholesaler, or in some cases a brand that will then take the raw material, the CBD, and convert it into a finished product. And we had lines, like cars lining up before we got into the factory of folks saying, we need, hey, where is it? How much do you have? We'll take it all. I mean, you could call it a gold rush.
I mean, we had to hire people not knowing what it's actually like to get people to be gainfully employed and then have them continue to stay interested and training them and developing them and getting to know them. That was really difficult. So nobody explains anything like that to you. And then having to put every single system of the company in place. Like we had accounting. I'm not an accountant, but on the off hours when we weren't talking to customers or I wasn't dealing with an employee issue, I would just read QuickBooks modules online. What's a purchase order? Like, how do you make an invoice? How do you close this out? How do you do that? Because we actually have an accountant. So we had to produce financials and everything for the first year of the business. We had to understand how to do that and then figure out who to talk to about tax returns. It was a new industry. People didn't know how to actually account for certain things that you have to do in terms of raw material, and you're growing something that you have to actually pay for ahead of time before it gets out of the ground. I mean, all these things like we had to do because it's never been documented. There's not a business you can just take that has done this in United States as like a textbook. I think it was very emotional in the beginning because you had to go through huge ups and downs. We've been through everything, like people stealing from us because we didn't really understand what to watch out for. We've been through customers taking product and not paying. I think the biggest thing in the industry that we had to contend with was that banks weren't wanting to have your company be an account at their bank. So we've been through 7 banks throughout the business.
Can't get a loan.
I remember there was a Thursday bank said, we're pulling out your money and you can pick up a cashier's check. And then we had payroll due on Tuesday the following week because at that time you were still associated with cannabis, even though it was hemp.
Cannabis refers to the broad group of plants that includes both hemp and marijuana. Hemp differs from marijuana because it has low THC levels. Hemp also contains a non-psychoactive compound called CBD that can be used for medicinal purposes. Kazmira's proprietary technology can extract CBD with precision, achieving as low as 0% THC, unlike other companies that have to dilute CBD to reduce THC levels to 0.3% to comply with federal law.
So, 2018, the Farm Bill took hemp derivatives off of a Controlled Substances Act, meaning that all hemp derivatives are allowed, including CBD. But that being said, that doesn't change what the states want to do. And that really allows the larger, trusted retailers to participate, right? That's why you have just these small brands that are not able to gain scale because everything is kind of state by state driven, right?
So CBD not having a federal status or regulatory clarity, just being at the state level, when you are trying to grow a business, you really can't avail of some of the just normal things that a business should have to avail of in order to grow. Something like equipment financing wouldn't come without a 25% interest price tag, which is too much for a company to take on.
25%.
And they want your IP as collateral.
And then a bunch of things as collateral. There's basic vendors. Maybe they're servicing your analytical equipment. Maybe they're servicing your actual processing equipment. Maybe it's even a consultant that's coming to help you with some administrative things. Those folks that are well known to other industries, they would not work with our company because we sell CBD. So even just trying to grow in the beginning and get those resources bolted on was just not possible. And people think that it's become better, but yet a massive piece of legislation such as safer banking, there's a section in there, Section 8, that actually covers CBD and hemp-related businesses. So there's still more to go, believe it or not, on accessing the right finances and just basically capital needs for your business, which even I was surprised to see that was part of safer banking. And it's unfair because while the government claims to want to have these industrial hemp businesses flourish and have entrepreneurship be very prominent in the space, there's also this other dark side of it where you have to get very creative in order to get those things for your business.
So yeah, it's a challenge to hire folks that are visas. We can't hire them because they're not a citizen, and if they are hired, it would look very bad on their application. So that's been a very interesting learning that we didn't anticipate at all. You can't advertise on Google, Facebook, Google. Nextdoor has a policy of not allowing CBD products to sell on their platform. Pretty much everywhere you look to trying to sell CBD online is virtually a big wall.
Most of the research on cannabis and cannabinoids has been with the mindset of showing why it's bad. So it's very easy to go online and see marijuana linked to lung disease and marijuana linked to sleeplessness and all this negative stuff that marijuana is bad, cannabis is bad, and hemp is also demonized. If you just look at how it is in literature, we haven't had the opportunity as a society to invest in finding out what CBD can do for us. We only know 1% of what CBD is going to do to help us. In the last 4 to 5 years, I think there has been an uptick in the amount of research that is being done with CBD and other cannabinoids to show if it's anti-inflammatory, is there antibacterial agency to it. There are studies with it with insomnia. So people are starting to do these studies because consumers have come, and whether it's in reviews or whether it's actually telling testimony, they've been open about what they're using CBD for.
I've personally tried almost all the products from Dr. Diol, a company that sells Kazmira's CBD products directly to consumers like me. I use them to help improve my sleep, for pain relief, and recovery after hardcore exercise. With that being said, I've always wondered why none of these benefits were ever listed on the website or packaging.
The link that's missing is an FDA regulation. For instance, there's an entire regulatory infrastructure for OTC products.
For those who may not know, OTC stands for over-the-counter products.
When consumers use an OTC product, they have active ingredients. Those active ingredients come with a certain set of claims, and manufacturers can write on the packaging what those products do. In this case, because there's no regulatory scheme for selling CBD, anytime you attempt to put any sort of claim around the product, you will just get an FDA warning letter. That's been the industry for the last 7 to 10 years. It's been defined by warning letters about what you can and cannot say for CBD products.
And when you try to get, so you could say, okay, why don't we file with the FDA for CBD to be an OTC level with dosages, claims, even for cosmetics? Guess what? You can't. And if you try, it is so exorbitantly expensive that nobody has the money to do it. All of these OTC drugs been OTC drugs for probably half a century. So no innovation has happened whatsoever.
Yeah, I think maybe consumers don't actually understand how much of a ring fence there is around OTC products, and not only marketing power, but margins
Pricing
that these
power.
companies can make by selling them on shelves. It's just makes sense to sell an OTC product, but to actually try to get a new ingredient as OTC approved, it's so expensive that a company wouldn't actually go down that path because the FDA puts a black box around whether they're going to allow that or not.
Wow.
And that's why there's such a big fight between FDA and the supplement industry, because they have their own set of rules and regulations surrounding what they can say about supplements. It's very different from how you can market and sell OTC products. But CBD, it has not been defined to be in any of those regulatory lanes. It's not accepted as a supplement, not accepted as OTC, not accepted as a cosmetic ingredient, which that has its own set of claims that you're allowed to do if you go through certain procedures. So that's why brands can't actually tell you on the packaging what it does.
Look, we have done studies comparing our CBD against one of the leading antibacterial products on the market. And we found that the CBD performed significantly better than this leading OTC antibacterial product. And this product is available on every shelf in America. Yet, we cannot do anything about it.
With so many challenges and stigmas surrounding CBD, I asked Pulak and Priyanka what helped them to keep going for almost a decade.
You have to be lifted up by the people around you. Like you have to do that. Whenever we would meet someone at a conference, whoever it is, it could be a farmer, it could be somebody who would eventually take Dr. Diol products, or it would just be somebody who was interested about CBD. I'm gonna give them a call the day I get back in the office, just make that connection. Or if it was somebody who said, hey, I know this company that does really great flavors, like you should give them a call. I'm gonna send them an email and make that connection, because you also have to have in this industry, because there's so much against it, you have to have the goodwill of everybody around you to lift it up. I think when we had told our family and friends, this was something that came up that Jeff Bezos has talked about, that founders are normally either mercenaries or missionaries. And with the mercenaries, you're gonna start a business and in 3 years, you're gonna go sell it, or you're gonna get this return, and you're always looking for when you're going to sell the business for some big buyout,
what's the exit?
right? Like,
Yeah.
what's the exit plan? What's the exit plan? So I think there were a lot of people that had approached us with that question. What's the exit plan? Because it's assumed, because most businesses today are like that, most startups, like the founders are mercenaries.
Yeah.
Maybe they did missionary building in the past on something else, but they're mercenaries now. And we didn't know that this was a question that was probably in people's mind. And we subconsciously decided to like just settle in because we are missionaries in this business and in Kazmira.
With an exit strategy out of the question and banks unwilling to work with a hemp company, Pulak and Priyanka had to find other ways to scale Kazmira.
So this is summer of 2019. At that time, there were a lot of companies that were announcing strategic partnerships with hemp companies. And this would be in the form of maybe they were doing equity investments. Sometimes they were just doing strategic partnerships for their supply chain or a supply contract, or it was a buyout of the company. We saw a lot of that too. But that time, there was a lot of investment into the hemp space from Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. And very fortunately, in that summer, we were approached by Perrigo. Perrigo wanted to introduce CBD into store brand products across the United States. So what I mean by store brand is Walmart has a brand, Equate. Sam's Club has Members Mark. Costco has other store brand products. They are a large manufacturer of a lot of personal care products, and they wanted to introduce CBD to those because they saw this huge consumer will and this consumer need for CBD products. And at that time, it was great because Perrigo was actually going through revolutionizing their business to become a self-care business. They were primarily into pharmaceuticals and then into OTCs, but they wanted to be in self-care, which is basically offering like cosmetics and supplements and those type of products to consumers. And CBD fit really well into that story. And so we were approached by their leadership team, and they had a CEO at the time. His name is Murray Kessler. And they invested in Kazmira. I believe it was June 9th of 2020. And we won't ever forget it because we were actually in the hospital because I was in labor with our first, and we actually signed the closing documents in the hospital hours after our first was born.
Oh,
And
what a day.
it was exciting in just so many ways because, you know, as a couple and as entrepreneurs and founders, your identity becomes this business. And so for us personally, it was gratifying and it was just
validation.
It's validating that what we're doing is for the purpose of reaching more people. And that partnership solidified that mission could stay true. And then it happening the day that our first was born. I mean, what could be better than that?
Cinderella story.
Yeah.
It was very humbling too because it gave us a perspective that there's something beyond just work and not having your identity tied to the work itself. And it made us realize that there's a side of you that also has to focus on something else, right? Our missionary work with Kazmira is not going to stop, but we also have another missionary work now with our children.
Yeah, and I think that in terms of financing, it set up the company to be successful for many years ahead. And that was something that wasn't there. And it affected us personally as well, because we would often talk about, do we start a family? Like, is that actually a responsible thing to do? Not really knowing like what's going to happen to the space and what will happen to FDA regulation and how are all these things going to work. And you have to just do things sometimes knowing that you will find the answer to that question at some point.
Yeah. Do you guys talk about work all the time?
In short, yes, we do talk about work a lot. That being said, now that we have a family, I think there's just a real clear understanding between Priyanka and I that when our son comes home from daycare, he deserves the full attention.
Well, having kids forces you into a new way of life. It takes a significant amount of time and a discipline. I fondly remember times in the early days of the business where it could be 9:45 at night and I'm almost closed my eyes and I think, wait a minute, this is the email I have to write to this person. And then I would just get up and do it. But right now I can't do it because if I move out of that room, my son will wake up and then the whole thing starts over again. And so I would say with kids, like you have to keep even more in your mind and you have to be even more effective in that time that you get to work. There's definitely people that would look at our life and think, oh my God, that sounds extremely stressful.
Yeah,
because for us, in the beginning of days of our business, you have this like ladder of responsibilities and your employees come first and then your customers and then each other and then yourself. And then now we've added kids at the top of that list. I forgot our families and friends and all these things that come before us. But as far as working as husband, wife, I would recommend it to anybody that gets to do this because the moments that you need help and you tell your partner what needs to get done and they just go do that, there's nothing that can replace that trust.
Without a doubt.
Right?
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
It really is.
And you're going to spend a lot of time together.
Spend a lot of time together and challenge each other, keep getting out of your comfort zone. I think we push each other out of our comfort zone in different ways.
Yeah.
One of the big things that Pulak has done for both of us is find a network in Colorado. So there's a community called Vistage. It's a CEO network group. And so he thought that it would be very beneficial for both of us to be part of one. And that's changed the trajectory of our business. Full stop.
Without a doubt.
Being in Vistage.
So what are you looking to accomplish in the next decade?
We want to enable cannabinoids to be part of the lexicon of products you can buy in the supermarket. They have gone through the proper safety work, they've gone through the proper efficacy work, and they're accepted as products of virtue with different need states. That's just one thing that we really want to see, and we want to see that for broader cannabis.
The next 10 years, we want to see reform for our industry. We're going to continue to pull at the fabric that's been over the eyes of all consumers on what cannabinoids can do for them. We're going to continue to pull at that every day. But we want to see reform. We want to see access for these products. Follow One Hemp. It's going to be a very important organization that interfaces with Congress on reasonable regulation for CBD. Talk to officials from the state, talk to politicians, anybody that you can talk to about the need for increasing access of these products. The more that we all say the same thing, the faster the message gets across.
Yeah, because guess what? The boomer generation and older, they don't get it. And that's okay, but it needs to change. We as a society, we need to own it. And the people that want to use these products should get the access they deserve.
So how can one follow or support One Hemp?
To support and get involved, go to onehemp.org and follow along our journey to advance CBD regulation federally.